Well, good evening. How's everybody feeling? Good enough. I'm not one of those people that does that wasn't good enough, let's do it again. Y'all had great seats for worship, but I'm gonna give you a heads up, you got terrible seats for the talk, okay? So sorry for the tushy view the whole time. I'm gonna stay up here. Because look at this. I've never had a stage where I could go this far and do this much. I feel like I should have gotten like some Judah Smith stuff ready and really gotten into, because Jesus! You know, and been more intense. I'm not that intense, actually. I'm kind of silly, so we'll figure it out. My name is Justin. I'm very excited to be here. I get the opportunity. I've been with BigStuf for a while now, and it is by far my favorite thing I do all year. And I have 2 kids who have birthdays and things like that. This is my favorite thing that I do all year long, and so I'm excited to be here with you. Some things you should know about me. I got to about middle school, and everything else kept developing, you know. I've got this big, strong physique, but inside here, it just kind of said, around 7th grade, said, we're done. You know, this is where we're going to stay mentally. So I'm a little bit ADD at times, so if I jump from one idea to the other, if I lock onto one person and it feels like I'm just talking to you, I'm really sorry. It may get awkward for you, but it won't get awkward for me. We're good. Y'all from Georgia? Is that right? All right. I, too, am from Atlanta, Georgia. I'm going to give you the quick bio because we got a lot to talk about tonight. I grew up homeschooled in Ohio in the middle of nowhere. The 2 things you find. I know that must mean you're from Ohio because homeschoolers don't draw attention to themselves. So welcome my Ohio friends. But I grew up in Ohio, and the 2 things, if you're from Ohio or you've been through Ohio, that you have in Ohio is cold and corn. Where we were at, cornfields everywhere. And so I was getting through homeschool, and my parents eventually let me go to high school. We're going to talk about that in just a second. But I said, you know what? When I graduate high school, I'm getting away from the cold, I'm getting away from the corn, and I'm gonna go to college someplace tropical. So I graduated finally, 6 best years of high school you can do, and I went off to college in Indiana. Yeah. My mom did not teach me good geometry. So anyway, some of you will get that joke later tonight. Oh, I forgot to tell you. Oh, this is so important. There's only 2 types of people that laugh at my jokes. Really, really smart people and really, really attractive people. So if I tell a joke and you don't laugh, read between the lines, okay? This guy's laughing. He must be really smart. Yeah, there we go. We're on the same page, finally. Okay. So I got done with college. I said enough's enough. I moved to Atlanta, Georgia. I met a wonderful girl from the South. We got married. We have 2 girls. They're 9 and 7. I love them very much. I'll talk about them from time to time. But I'm really excited to be here. I'm really excited about the theme. But before I move on and talk about that, can we talk about this table ADD? I told you, right? Look how clear they got this. My guy in the back here, before he brought it out, was literally scrubbing it with like washcloths to make sure it looked incredible. That's one of the things I love about BigStuf, this attention to detail. So let's give the BigStuf staff a big round of applause. This is amazing. So when we've been talking this year about the theme, this theme homecoming came up. And something happened in me that I didn't really understand at first, and I kind of had to think about a little bit. My reaction wasn't like, yes, homecoming. My reaction was kind of like to cower back and get a little bit scared. I am going to fall off this stage at one point, but get a little bit scared. And I thought, well, why did that kind of make me nervous? And then I remembered my parents allowing me to be homeschooled all the way up to high school. And then they were like, nah, you're good enough. Go ahead. And they just like let me go into the public high school system just to see if I would survive. Now, God made me really skinny with a really big mouth, but super fast. So that's how I've survived this whole time, my whole life. And so I get into high school, and my brother had been there 2 years before me. He's kind of talking me through the process of everything. But the homecoming dance was coming up. And for somebody who's only gone to school with people who've lived inside your mom, this was a new experience for me. Because now there's this thing called dating, where these girls that you're not related to are all around, and people are gonna ask people to the dance. It's terrifying. And so there was this awful thing that happened to me at my first homecoming dance freshman year. But to understand and have some empathy for me, let's back up a little bit, okay? Year starts. I'm getting ready for chemistry class. I've got an older brother who is probably as smart as I am. We were both homeschooled by the same person who did not have the qualifications to teach us. But he's saying, hey, I've got the answer. If you want to get an A in chemistry class, it's not about how much you study. It's not about how much you read. It's not about how much you take in when the teacher is teaching the stuff and you're able to understand. The way that you get an A in chemistry without having to lift a finger is find the smartest person in the class and be their lab partner. I was like, this is genius. This is genius, because there's gonna be that overachiever out there who's like, I'm gonna drag you along no matter what. All I have to do is convince them that I'm gonna be the best lab partner. And so I'm in the class with my buddy David, and all of a sudden, it happened. The world kind of hit slow motion, and she walked in the door. And her hair was doing that slow motion Carrie Underwood thing. She was not even touching the floor, I'm pretty sure. She was just kind of doing the head wave like this. You know, I'm nailing it right now. This feels like a catwalk. It's odd, but go with it. And we'll call her Emily because that was her name. And so Emily walks in the class, and I immediately had like the biggest crush on Emily. She, in my opinion, was like the it girl. You know, the girl you date, get engaged, get married, buy a house, get a dog if she's not allergic. And so Emily's there, and not only was Emily beautiful and gonna be my wife one day, Emily happened to be smart. And I'm like, David, here's what's gonna happen. I'm gonna woo Emily to be my lab partner, and not only is she gonna drive us to an A, but I'm gonna drive us to marriage. And this is gonna all work out by sophomore year. And he's like, I'm for it, man, I'm here for you. So the professor breaks everybody up into their groups, and at my lab table, it was by last name. Me and David were beside each other, and Emily happened to sit right in front of me, and Celeste was sitting in front of David. You won't hear anything else about Celeste. She didn't really have any other part in the story. So everybody just say, bye, Celeste. She gone. Okay, and so we're sitting there at these lab tables, and he's going through the orientation, and the professor walks up and he said to the class, he says, Johnny was a chemist's son. Johnny was no more. What Johnny thought was H2O was H2SO4. And that's the only thing I remember from chemistry class, by the way. And basically what he's saying is there's this kid, and his dad's a chemist, this kid, Johnny. His dad's a chemist, and Johnny's out one day, he's running around, he's throwing the football, frisbee, whatever, you know, he's playing spike ball, pickleball, whatever ball was popular back in Johnny's day. And Johnny comes into the house where his dad is a chemist, and he opens the fridge and he grabs what he thinks is a glass of H2O, which is water, and he drinks what he thinks is H2O, but it's H2SO4, which is sulfuric acid, and he dies. Welcome to chemistry class. And so he tells us this poem, and everybody's taking their turns going up and getting their stuff and like their lab coat and their goggles out of that little machine. If you're from my day in high school, they put all your goggles in this thing and they shone a light on it and said sterilized. And so everybody's getting their goggles out of that thing. And so before it was our turn, I turned to David. I'm like, David, I got an idea. I know exactly how I'm gonna woo Emily into not only being my lab partner, but one day my wife. Our kids are gonna talk about this. He's like, I'm listening. I said, listen, I'm gonna take this beaker out from under the little station here, and I'm gonna write H2SO4 on the little label, and I'm gonna put just a little bit of water in it, and I'm gonna twist it where she can see it, and when she comes back to the table, I'm gonna drink it and drop some line like, this Johnny guy's got nothing on me, and she's gonna be like, oh, no, you're gonna die, and then I'm gonna live, and she's gonna be like, my hero, and we're gonna get married. And he's like, dude, I love that idea. I'm like, yes, okay. So Emily gets up, and that other girl that we've already dismissed, and I take the beaker out and I write H2SO4 on it. I put a little bit of water in it, not so much that it's obvious, but not so little that she's like, you didn't do anything. You know, so I just put the right amount in, and I set it on the desk. And then it was my turn to go up and get my goggles, and she sits down. And while I'm gone, what I didn't know was David hated me. So while I was gone, David dumps out said H2SO4, my water, and he puts white vinegar in the beaker. And so I sit down, David's beside me, Emily, love of my life, is right in front of me, and I look at David and I'm like, it's about to go down. And he's like, yes, it is. And so I look at Emily and I'm like, hey, Emily, that Johnny guy's got nothing on me. And I throw back what I think is water, and as soon as the vinegar hits my mouth, my brain goes, you just drank H2SO4, you're gonna die! You just drank H2SO4, you're gonna die! So I panicked and did what any sane human being in this room would do. Unfortunately, the love of my life was sitting right in front of me. And now she thinks that I've just spit H2SO4 acid in her face and open eyes. And so she's panicking, and I'm panicking, and it burns her just enough for her to really be convinced of it. And there's this little shower and eye wash thing in the corner of your room that all of you one day in chemistry class could be like, it'd be so awesome if we could use that. When the love of your life has mascara running down her face, and she's looking at you saying, tell me why, it's not awesome. 2 days later, David tells me that him and Emily are going to homecoming together. I'm gonna take that to assume you're on my side here. Good, because here's what I did to retaliate, okay? I'm not proud of it. I'm only human, okay? I'm not proud of it. Hear me say that. They were gonna go to dinner before homecoming. And David's like, well, I think maybe we're just gonna eat, at our own houses, and then I'll just pick her up, we'll do pictures and stuff like that. And I had an idea. Okay? So me and my brother went in and we got a $50 Applebee's gift card because we're fancy like. You know what I'm talking about? So we get this Applebee's gift card and he and I go to Applebee's and we had the meal of the century, okay? We were getting all the appetizers every day. It's hard to spend $50 at Applebee's. You will be really full. It's not safe. And so we spent the whole gift card and we go home and I called David and I'm like, hey man, I wanted to do something nice for you. So I got you a gift card to Applebee's so you can take Emily before homecoming. Dude was so thrilled. He's like, thank you so much. I'm gonna have my mom drive me over. I'll pick it up. This is amazing. Thank you so much. And so they get dropped off at Applebee's. I'm sure they had a wonderful meal talking about their future plans together and all the kids and all of that stuff. And when it came time to pay, he didn't have any money. So David had to call his little mommy in front of the love of his life and have her drive all the way back to Applebee's and pay for their meal. And I was like, serves you right, okay? 1 point David, 1 point Justin. Are you keeping score? 1-1, I'm looking at you, yeah. So we get to the dance, all right? I literally told you all of that just for this moment, all right? We get to the dance, homecoming dance. Now, in homeschool, we didn't have dance class, It was not part of what we did. And so everybody's out there, and they all know how to dance. And I'm like, where did y'all learn how to dance? My body, when it hears music, doesn't do dance things. It does, like, I'm about to throw up or go to the bathroom things, It's weird. And so I'm out on the dance floor trying just to sell it like I'm just a normal human being. No, I didn't take a girl. I went with a bunch of my friends, and we all got there, No, we didn't go out to eat before. I had Applebee's 2 days before, and I was still recovering. And so everybody's dancing, and I'm just kind of like doing my thing, my dance thing. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, spiteful David, remember it's 1-1, comes up behind me and puts his fingers in my pockets and pulls my pants straight to my feet. Okay? You have never in your life seen a dance circle form so fast. And all of a sudden I'm looking around and everybody's around me. Men, women, teachers, chaperones, you name it. And so I did the thing that any sane person would do. I'd start trying to pull up my pants. The problem was the song that was playing fit perfectly to what I was trying to do. DJ, hit that track. Oh, cut it. If I'm lying, I'm dying. Every dance after that song was requested and they called it the Warner. And everybody across the entire room would all put one hand up because you gotta hold your boxers up, If you pull my pants down, I'm not gonna leave myself vulnerable to any other attack. So you got one hand up here if you wanna learn it for later. The other one grabs your pants and you're kind of trying to snake your legs through your pants like this, all right? I cut the lyrics out of that song because it's awful. My high school experience was terrible. So homecoming for me was a mess. And so when I heard the theme, I'm like, I don't want that to be what students think of when they hear homecoming. Some of you may have worse stories than me around homecoming. I don't want you to think like, oh no, this puts up some negative emotions. And so I brought a video clip I want to show you real quick because this is what I want homecoming to be for each and every one of you this week. Check it out.
Captain Sam, can you hear me? On your left.
I'm not offended by that.
No, we'd rather watch the movie than listen to this stupid guy.
Thank you very much. But that's the kind of homecoming I want it to be. Imagine if you're Captain America, you're standing there, you've got no cards left to play, there's nothing left you could do. The enemy in front of you seems to be insurmountable, there's no way you can defeat him, and then all of a sudden, from behind you, all of your support, all of your help, all of your strength comes to life, and they gather around you, and they're like, hey, we're home, we're here for you. That's what I want this to be for you this week. I want Big Stuff this week to feel like home. But first, let's talk about home. What does home feel like? You know how like every home has a smell? When you walk in your friend's house, like their house has a smell, and your house has a smell, but you can't smell it. You've got to ask your friends, what does my house smell like? Because you're always used to it. Have you ever noticed that? My friends were like, your house smells like Tide and firewood. I'm like, that sounds good. But anyway, every house has a smell, and every house has a feel. So you feel different when you walk into your friend's home than you do when you walk into your home. Maybe when you walk into a stranger's home for a first time, it feels different. You know, you're getting the vibes. But I want to talk about, for you, when you think about home, I just want to quickly identify what you think about. So do this, close your eyes. Everybody in the room, leaders, students, close your eyes. I want you to think of, identify, I'm going to give you just a couple seconds to do this. I want you to think of or identify 3 words that for you describe home. When I say home, what are 3 words you would use to describe it? All right, you can open eyes. I would imagine if I were to poll each of you individually, we would have a very wide array of words in this room. Some of you would use words like, it feels really safe, peaceful. You know, it's where I go to rest. It's secure, it's fun, it's joyful, it's happy. And I think on the complete other end, there would be a significant amount of you that would say, yeah, it was those things, but now it feels kind of chaotic. Now it feels unsafe. I don't feel secure there. I don't feel safe there. It's not a place I would want to be. Some of you, home is a really good thing. And some of you want to be home right now. You're already homesick. And for others of you, you couldn't wait to get here because the idea of home for you has either been terrible from the beginning or it's been ruined by something else. Maybe a divorce took place in your household and now home is 2 different places and neither one of them feel natural or normal to you anymore. Maybe a boyfriend entered the picture and now home feels like a place that you can't rest and you can't let your guard down because there's this person you don't really know living in your home. Maybe there's step siblings that have gone into the home. Maybe your parents have these Christian ideals and these rules that they're trying to implement on you and they're trying to force you into a belief system that you're not ready to believe or not willing to believe, and home doesn't feel like a good place to be. Here's what I know. Home is usually hard because of the humans. Home, your experience of home, whether it's really hard or whether it's really easy and safe and peaceful, is usually determined by the people in the home. And so the makeup of humans in your household may be the reason that you define the words the way that you do, positive or negative. But here's what we tend to do, and I get to talk to a lot of high school, middle school students all over the country, and here's the thing. I know this is an issue here because it's been an issue everywhere else, that when a student has a hard home, they'll hide in another home. Not physically, they're not like running off and hiding in their friend's house and things like that. But when a student has a hard home, they're gonna find a home where they're accepted, where they're welcomed, where they feel safe, where they feel at least numb, if not safe, where they feel some sense of security, some sense of joy, some sense of purpose, some sense of belonging. And Tasia was talking about at the beginning of the night, that home will look like a lot of different things. I've seen that home show up like a pill or a bottle or a blade or a website or a social media app or another human being in an unhealthy relationship. And our tendency is to go make these homes in different places, in different ways, where we can feel this acceptance and this safety that we don't feel in our own. And if you're anything like me, when I was in high school, the words I would have used to describe home is fun, safe, enjoyable. But I was one of 5 kids who didn't get much attention, and I'm the type of person, in case you haven't noticed, that needs attention. And so I went and made home other places because I didn't feel like I was getting what I needed at my own home. My needs weren't being met. And so the whole purpose of this week is to kind of peel back that layer and look at, like, what is home for you? What does homecoming mean for you? And what other options do you potentially have? So I want us to talk about where this all started in the very beginning. Not in the beginning of your life, before that, before my life, before your leader's life. Way back in the very beginning where God created everything, back in the Garden of Eden. If you've never heard of it, the Bible starts with a book called Genesis, and it has a first chapter. And in that first chapter, we begin to learn about how God created the heavens and the earth. And we begin to learn about how God begins to throw these stars in the sky, and he's separating things from one another, and we're getting land, and we're getting water, and we're getting sky, and we're getting land. And so God is establishing the earth and the world as we know it in this beginning book of the Bible. And as he's doing that, we see how methodical he is. We see how patient he is, and how he begins to create, and he's speaking it into existence. And we're beginning to understand how powerful he is. We're beginning to understand what an incredible designer he is, what an incredible creator he is. And so God makes all of the land, he makes the sky and all of this, and then he begins to fill it up. He's looking at this vessel he's created, and he begins to, like, put the little fishies in the water. You like fishies? Yeah, likes fishies in the water, some birds in the sky. It says that he put, like, animals to crawl around on the land. And what God had created was a perfect habitat. And he's looking down on it, he's like, yeah, it's good. It's a perfect habitat. He's looking at it and realizing, but it's not yet a home. Because the difference between a habitat and a home is humans. And so God creates man out of dust, out of this nothingness, and he calls him Adam. Maybe you've heard of Adam and Eve. And then he takes a rib from Adam and he makes Eve. And now we have Adam and Eve, 2 human beings on earth who are now establishing not just a habitat on earth, but a home. Here's what the Bible says. So God created human beings in his own image. God creates a man and a woman who, that when they look at their reflection, they're seeing the reflection back of their creator. So they'll have some resonance there with the one who created them. I'm not going to put this on the screen, but I'll read it to you. It's out of Genesis. Then God blessed them and said, be fruitful and multiply, have children, for those of you who don't know what that means. Fill the earth and govern it. Reign over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and the animals that scurry along the ground. Then God said, look, I've given you every seed-bearing plant throughout the earth and all the fruit trees for your food. I have given you every green plant as food, vegetarians, and all the wild animals, the rest of us, the birds of the sky and the small animals that scurry along the ground, everything that has life. And that is what happened. God gives them everything in earth and says, hey, this is your home. Make yourself at home. And so they begin to live among the animals and the trees and the birds, and they begin to establish this home together. Then God looked over all he had made, and he had saw that it was very good. You may not know this, but God is wanting to create and invite you into a home this week. This week, right now, I don't know whether you have been running from God, you've been believing in God your whole life, you've been waiting for this week to take notes to kind of sustain you until next summer when you go to BigStuf, what kind of person you are, but I don't want to skip past the simple fact that God is wanting to create and invite you into a home this week. And I like the words create and invite because some of you are like, there's no home for me. I've had to build my own homes. I've had to go to Home Depot and buy the lumber and build it myself, build it with my reputation and build it with, my parents' money, whatever the case may be. But the idea that there is a heavenly Father, there's a God up in heaven who you may not even believe in, is wanting to create and invite you to a home this week. And I think the problem is, for most of us, whether you're a Christian or you're not a Christian, is we forget that. We've never learned that. And I think that when we're able to examine the condition of our hearts and our minds and the things we're thinking and the things that we're feeling, it's really simple to figure out what's going on. And let me explain it this way. I have a daughter, Allie. She is 7. She is the best kid in the world. Don't tell my 9-year-old that, okay? I told her once, it didn't go well. But Allie, she's 7. Allie is like me. She's got a lot of energy. She's got a big personality. She's like the most fun kid in any room that she's ever in. And she had a project that came up. They had to make a diorama. You remember those? So she had to make this habitat in a little shoebox for an eagle was the animal that she picked. And so she's making this habitat and everything. And like the night before it was due, she's like, Daddy, I forgot to make a nest. And my eagle needs a nest. What do I do? And I'm like, listen, I'll stay up and I'll make the nest for you. And you could just stick it in there tomorrow. You could take it to school. So I went out in the yard at nighttime with a flashlight. And I start picking through the pine straw. I start looking through the mulch. I start going back in the woods behind our house. And I'm finding everything that I need to build this nest. Because I had a vision for this nest. I'm Googling eagle nests to see what they look like. And I'm getting an image of it in my head. And so I go into my garage and I lay everything out. And I start to work on this thing. My wife comes out and she's like, you know, everybody just gets an A. That's how it works these days. I'm like, I'm building the best nest in that class. And she's like, all right, I'm going to bed. And so I begin to build this nest. And I'm looking at these pictures on my iPad, and I'm like, okay, and so I'm starting to put this piece here. I didn't like how it fit, so I took another piece out and I put one in. And finally, after all this time, after all this design, I finally got this perfect nest created. And I was so proud of it. I can't even tell you. I stuck it in the diorama, and I knew the next day when she woke up, she's gonna look in there and she's gonna be beaming. And that's exactly what happened. She came down to eat her breakfast and she looked in it. She was like, Daddy, that is the best nest I've ever seen. I'm like, I know, eagles would be jealous of that nest. I could sell eagle nests on Etsy and eagles would be buying them all over the place. And so we grab her box. She gets in the back seat. She's just looking at it on the way to school. She's so proud of it. I'm so proud of her, you know. And so we finally, we drop her older sister off at this side of the school. We got to drive around to the other side. And we start going. I hear her crying. And I look back and I'm like, these are not just like, you know, Finley stepped on my toe when she was getting out of the car tears. These are like tears. Somebody just ripped the head off my stuffed animal tears. I mean, she is legitimately crying. And so I pull off into the parking lot and I'm watching her and I see all of this anxiety. I see all of this like fear, all of this. I'm like, Allie, what is going on? And she said, I went to adjust the nest and I broke it. And she was panicking because she's like, this perfect nest that I have is now broken and I don't know what to do and I've got to go into class, and she's got anxiety about going into class now, and she's scared that she won't get a good grade and nobody's going to get to see the nest she made. And in that moment, I realized she's full of anxiety. She's full of a little anger and fear and all of these things because she forgot that the one who designed the nest and the one who created the nest was with her. She forgot that. And all it took was me in a moment being able to remind her, Allie, listen to me. I designed that nest. I built that nest. I created that nest. And if you will just hand it to me, I will fix that nest. Anything that's broken on it, I'll make it better than ever. And in the same way, I think people either have forgotten or people have not heard that the one who designed them and the one who created them is with them. And that's my hope for you this week, is that you would come to realize that home is closer than you think. Because for some of you, it feels like a long way off. It feels like an ideal that you will never reach. Home is an idea for the Christian kids who grew up in church and all of this. But what I'm hoping and praying you realize, and I want you to hear me tonight, if this is you, I want you to realize home is closer than you think. And in the same way, I don't care what your beliefs are, here's the reality. God is closer than we think. Home is closer than we think, and God is closer than we think. And it's as simple as this: being able to realize the one who designed you and the one who created you is with you. And he's hoping to create a home to keep you safe. He's hoping to create a home where you can rest and you can come meet with him. So, here's what I want to do starting off this week. First, I want to ask God to help you feel at home this week. Can you do that? Like at small group and maybe after small group when you're in your own quiet time or getting ready to go to bed. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate. You don't have to light candles and put on, David Crowder music and sit on your knees and all that. Don't do that. Just as simple as this. Ask God to help you feel at home this week. For some of you already feel at home. You've been at camp a ton of years in a row. But you know who you are. When I said this, you haven't felt settled in yet. You were nervous to come. You weren't sure how this was going to go. I'm challenging you. Ask God to help you feel at home this week. And for all of us, be open to the idea of a homecoming. Not like I had, okay? That was awful. I wouldn't wish that on my enemies except David. But be open to the idea of a homecoming. What does that mean? Well, I think it means be open to the idea of getting face to face with your Heavenly Father. Homecoming being the process of coming home. And the process of coming home is beginning to realize and the light bulb go on, the one who designed me and the one who created me is actually with me. Be open to a homecoming this week because you never know what God is going to do when you decide to come home. So let me just say this. For all of you who are here, I'm always incredibly proud of students who will prioritize their future enough to get away from their schedules and their regular lives to come to a place like this and yes, have a lot of fun, but really prioritize your future and be open-minded to what you're hearing. I just want to say, as we go throughout this week, it is going to take some of you stepping up and being leaders in your small group to create a safe place and say, yes, I'm going to go first. And so I don't want you to wait till the last session to do that. So when you guys have your small group times and things like that, I want A, for it to be the safest place for you to have a homecoming. And B, I'm asking, challenging some of you, maybe if you've been a Christian a long time or you've been coming a long time, I'm asking you to go first. Don't make your leaders drag it out of you because somebody's waiting for you to speak. Somebody's waiting for you to go first and they're dying to go second. So here's a question I want to leave you with. As we get ready to leave, Tasia's going to come back out in just a second. How can you live out the highest version of home this week? For some of us, we've had a lot of versions of home, which we wouldn't label them high versions of home. Maybe they're homes we've created through relationships or substances or things like that. Some of you just literally live in your home, and it's not a place that you're thriving. But how can you be intentional to live out the highest version of home this week? A home that you can take with you back home. I'm going to pray for you, and Tasia's going to come out and tell us what's next. Heavenly Father, thank you for today. Thank you for all that you've given us through your son, Jesus. God, I just pray that students here would have the courage to go first in their small group. God, I ask that they'd have the willingness to share and create a safe space because there are people here who desperately need to come home. Thanks for creating a place we could come to. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Justin.